This is my botany video made by Ella Albert. The purpose of my experiment was to test whether or not companion growing basil influences the growth of Thai chili peppers. The design of my experiment took place in my garden in a raised bed at my house. I grew 4 total pepper plants, with 2 of them near basil to see if it influenced the growth of the pepper. The question for my experiment was, does companion growing, specifically basil, affect the growth of the Thai chili pepper? My position on that question was that I believe that the Thai chili peppers grown near the basil would positively influence the growth of the peppers compared to the control group, with peppers grown near no basil in the same conditions, to see if it would influence or de-influence the growth of the pepper. The plants I used for my experiment was the Thai chili peppers as the main crop and my basil as my companion crop. The test variable of my experiment was to determine whether or not Thai chili peppers had an effect to a companion plant growing with them, or companion versus alone. This is how the Thai chili pepper seeds looked after 1 week. I used the wet paper towel method as a way to fertilize the seeds. This is how the seeds looked in week 2. They grew a little bit and I planted them into the soil so they could conduct further growth. This is how week 3 looked for the seeds. As you can see, the basil had significant growth and the seeds still had minimal growth, but they are growing. This is how they looked in week 4. As you can see, they both had significant growth, but if you look carefully, you can see the ones on the right, the ones near the basil, have a little more leaves and they look a little more green, and probably suggesting that the basil is influencing the growth of the peppers. This is how they looked in week 5 of growth. You can see the 2 on the right are the ones near the basil, and you can see they have a little more leaves and they have grown a little bit longer, but none of them have significantly changed from week 4. This is how week 6 looked in the experiment. As you can see, the basils have significantly grown, and the plants in front of the basil or near the basil have grown just a little bit, but they have darkened and they have grown more leaves, as the one not near the basil have just developed a few more leaves, but they haven't really grown that much. This is how the 7th week of my experiment looked, or the final week of my experiment. As you can see, the basil has significantly grown as the pepper near the basil, it has gotten darker, gained way more leaves, and grown a little bit. The peppers not near the basil have grown just a little bit and got a little more leaves, but they haven't really significantly grown compared to how the peppers near the basil have grown. This is a graph of all the information that I obtained throughout my experiment through the 7 weeks. As you can see, I have a color description and the average number of leaves, the average height in centimeters, the group, and the week number. As you can see, on average, the leaves grew more on the plant near the basil, and the average height was taller with the plant near basil, and the leaves are darker, meaning it was healthier with the basil near it compared to the control group with no basil. This is another graph I made to show you on an x and y axis how the height was influenced by being near basil or being not near basil. As you can see how it grows at a steady rate throughout the weeks, as the one not near basil grows at a steady rate, but it grows at a decreased rate compared to the one near the basil. The result of my 7-week experiment was that the peppers that were grown near the basil were taller, had more leaves, and appeared darker, healthier green compared to the chilies grown alone. Although there was no peppers that actually grew, it was mainly because I didn't give it enough time to properly grow peppers, but the experiment was overall successful, and it did prove that companion planting basil affects the growth of the chili peppers positively. In conclusion, companion growing with a basil helped improve the growth of chili peppers. The plants near the basil grew taller, had more leaves, and even looked a healthier color. Even though there was not enough time for the peppers to fruit, this suggested that companion planting can create better growing conditions for chili peppers, improving the soil health or offering some pest protection. Overall, this was a successful experiment, and I will be continuing companion growing throughout the rest of my growing journey with future plants and vegetables that I choose to grow. This is the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed.